to be looking at internal communication ideas. Okay, so when it comes to internal comms, speaking to your people, keeping them informed, this would be the sort of the best practice, if you like. All right, some little ideas. Now we are coming very close to the big day where Santa with his sack and all that sort of jazz. Most of you, I'm guessing, will be winding down for Christmas. Some of you I know have already finished for Christmas as the kids have broken up for the Christmas period. Blah 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 blah. Right, let me just check that we are in fact alive on the old LinkedIn. Yeah, Miles Phillips is live. So let me just have a look at this. I can see that we've got a couple of people on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So please let us know if you're viewing live. Say hello in the chat. It's always nice to know that I'm not just speaking to a laptop. Right. I normally do a little bit of a preamble just so that people come on. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I am now repurposing, I think is the word, the audio for a podcast, which can be found on all your favorite podcast sections. Just search for Bite Size Marketing with Miles Marketing, and I'm sure you will find it. Now, I mentioned last week that the first guest speaker of the new year would be the fantabulous Stephen Shaw. This is no longer the case. Why, I hear you shout? Well, unfortunately, Stephen has been called away on business that particular day. However, I have managed to find an equally impressive speaker for the day. So the fantastic Chert from Dope Media is going to be joining us. We haven't quite nailed down what the subject matter is going to be, but Chert is a paid advertising specialist. So I'm sure it'll all be around paid advertising, pay-per-click, stuff like that. So that's something to look forward to on the 10th of January. You can then tune in on Valentine's Day. I think this is why Steve chose to push things back. So Valentine's Day, we're going to be chatting to Steve about the M word, which is the metaverse. And we've also booked up March as well. So there we go. We're just getting ourselves organised for next year with our guest speakers. Yeah, Mr. Moyes there. Hey, Matt. Hello, Matt. Nice to see you. Matt, nice to see you. Nice joining, eating your lunch. Well, this is what it's all about, right? Now, today we're going to talk about internal comms, give you some ideas, and just sort of chew the fat, really. Now, some of you that don't have employees, well, maybe this isn't relevant to you, but as your business grows, you really want to think about how you can keep your team informed. So even a team of 2, you need to keep those internal communications going. And I would suggest that you need to keep the internal comms as important within your hierarchy and your focus as the external comms. Now, when you think about it, your staff and your suppliers to a certain degree, your staff are probably your most expensive asset, or certainly one of your largest outgoings each month. And also, I like to refer to them as marketing megaphones. If you can get them talking positively about your company, then they're going to do some nice free PR for you, okay? Everywhere they go, every person they come into contact with at a party that asks them what they do for a living, they're going to have a much more positive conversation if they are properly informed, okay? So that's the important thing to think about here, informing the staff properly. Now, the number one thing that you need to share in your internal comms is all about the company goals. Now, I don't mean this quite literally, like banging the drum all the time about what the company goals are. But first of all, you need to make sure that you have shared the company goal with the staff and the company. And then you think about the messaging and the regular messaging on how you are performing versus that company goal. they're not going to be in a job, and you're not going to have a company if you don't perform well in terms of your company goals. So please if you're going to think about a message, keep that message in line, okay, in mind, and keep promoting and pushing that out pretty much in everything you do on a regular basis. How often should you talk about the company goal? Well, at least every quarter, I would say, and definitely annually. But I think that is, not regular enough. Personally, I think that you can't talk about the performance of the company too often, in my opinion. Okay, now in terms of ideas, and these are not going to be revolutionary, right? But think about a newsletter. Think about bringing things in line with your external communication. So if you're going to send a newsletter out to your customers, think about tweaking it slightly and making it relevant for your staff. This is all about working a little bit smarter and not harder. Now, if a picture paints 1,000 words, then you can guess how many pictures get painted with video. And regardless of how you feel as a person in front of the camera, you do, in this day and age, with Gen X and millennials, you need to Gen Z, Gen X. No, that's the wrong one. Gen Z and millennials, you really do need to embrace technology and video. Okay, video communications are so very important to getting your message across. And for a lot of bosses in larger companies, you are sort of put on a pedestal and revered to a certain degree. And by recording meaningful videos, this makes you more accessible to people. I would suggest having an open door policy as much as you can as well, and invite people in. And maybe within video, you want to think about perhaps inviting one of the key noisemakers within your business, right? This could be a receptionist or one of the salespeople, somebody that is very forthright and very boisterous and mouthy within your company. Why not ask them to interview the boss? I mean, you can ask them to prepare their questions in advance. It doesn't need to be a sort of a surprise thing. But by showing as the boss that you are accessible to the business and allowing the business to ask you perhaps the difficult questions, you might be able to create a positive culture. I don't want to harp on too much about culture, because as the boss, you can't really dictate or create the culture. That's down to the employees. But certainly you can lead from the front, and certainly getting the staff involved and making sure that you are ubiquitous across the sort of hierarchy within your business will really help. Think about links with other businesses, maybe local businesses. Maybe think about teaming up in a sort of you scratch up my back and I'll scratch yours. Perhaps there's a local business which you can offer a discount to your staff. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to suggest it, but you know what I mean. Regardless of which industry you're in, I'm sure that there are some local suppliers in which you can team up with and maybe offer your services at a discount to their staff, and in return you can offer a discounted service to your staff as part of a wider package. Try and think about adding value. I mean, it's this sort of points mean prizes type thing, but try and keep it personal. If you're going to run and I think we're coming on to this now, gamification, if you're going to incorporate a sort of a treasure hunt or a climb the ladder, or collect points and win something, then try and make sure that it's personalized or relevant. You don't want to be offering a discount to the local butchers to a vegan member of staff, as an example. All right, so make things personal. Don't forget to pop in the chat if you do offer a particular internal communication to your staff, and what have you found has worked for you. Definitely in this day and age, thinking about people that work from home and making sure that they're included and it's inclusive in terms of your communication is really important. So think about onboarding people with maybe a pack. Okay, maybe there's some things in there to remind them of the company goal or the company brand values. Maybe it's something which it's a bit of merch. Maybe it's a branded piece of clothing for them to wear when they're on a Zoom call. Trying to keep up with your remote staff is pretty tricky, and I can see that Justin's on the call today, and I know that when we were in the height of lockdown with Justin's staff and when they were working remotely, he used to hold micro meetings, and this worked as the name would suggest. The meetings were very short, and one of the issues he had was that he'd hold a meeting and it would run on. So they had longer sales meetings, but every morning at a particular time everyone would jump onto a Zoom and everyone would get the same amount of time to talk within the meeting. And the whole point of it was that it was restricted to you got 2 minutes or whatever it may be, and amongst 5 people that meant that the whole daily meeting was only lasting 10 minutes. And I know that Justin found it extremely useful and productive because it focused your mind on just mentioning the things that were important within the business on that particular day. And what it didn't do is it didn't overrun, so people were able to control their diaries nicely, and they were they were a bit more what's the word, motivated to actually join in on the call and participate because they knew it would be over reasonably quickly. So think about doing things in a different way to be effective. Think about delegating to your management team. So if you've got a large team, think about delegating the communication down the chain. Don't, as the boss, I would suggest, don't sort of sit there in your ivory towers and don't and become aloof, but certainly delegate down. Think about buddying systems, think about mentoring systems. That all really helps when it comes to feeding the communication back to the team. I mean, peer-on-peer communications is a lot more effective than the hierarchical sort of boss preaching down to the masses. Think about technology helping you. I've already mentioned that video plays a really important part these days and can be extremely effective, but I know that some companies still have an intranet, if you like, their own sort of closed internet site. But these days, those things are moving much more towards being user-friendly. So now they're in app form. And things like gamification then can really have prevalence, whereby perhaps there's some CPD that when people watch it, they get a brownie point, whatever, right? They get something to a little badge or a medal to a star. I love a star. So give them a gold star and you collect 10 gold stars and you get you get some meat from the butchers. You know what I mean? You get something in return. It doesn't have to be big. A lot of people just want to know actually that they're being listened to and that they're part of a team. So think about tech, think about apps, think about things like Slack, using technology to allow people to easily communicate with each other and as a team. Yep, Justin's saying that it worked really well, keeping things short and engaging everyone. And that's one of his challenges that he had. Be creative. Try and be creative when it comes to certainly onboarding your staff. Think about them following a journey and being able to sort of tick things off. I mentioned gamification, but turning things in. I don't mean mean it literally like you turn their onboarding into a game, but if they can see themselves moving through the progress of onboarding, then people are a lot more likely to sort of get engaged with it. You know, things like treasure hunts, virtual treasure hunts, quizzes, you know, those sort of things could be a good way to enroll someone within your business and get them to engage with the different departments if you're a part of a larger organization. Think about celebrating anniversaries. Okay, so somebody that has been there for a year, make a fuss of it, perhaps put their picture in the newsletter and congratulate them, or think about them, you know, having a badge of honor, if you like. And it could be a pin badge, but people don't really wear pin badges these days. So let's say that you've got company uniform. Maybe you change the embroidery of the logo, or maybe on the lapel, instead of a white collar tip, they have a golden collar tip because they've been there 5 years or whatever. You know, some way of having some subtle recognition of the seniority or somebody that has been in the business for a long time. Think about that. Asking for feedback. Now, I don't mean that you should put like a box at the front reception saying, you know, please pop your suggestions in the suggestion box, right? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is this. Maybe you want to form a working party made up of different people from different parts of your organization at different levels, and hold quarterly meetings where you ask them for their feedback on how things go. And maybe you set up different ways of communicating with people, or different social events that you get put on. And by involving all aspects of the business, you're much more likely to get buy-in in this sort of peer-to-peer way. Another thing which is quite an interesting concept, we all do interviews when you bring people on board, and we all do annual reviews where it's generally a conversation based around performance, and all you're really interested in is, am I getting my bonus this year, right? Why don't you hold what they call a stay interview? Why don't you pick random people throughout the business, bring them into an environment where it's a safe space that they can share how they are doing before they get to that stage where they're pissed off and they actually leave the company. With the vast majority of people, once they hand in their notice, they're gone, right? So why not take a proactive approach? And I would suggest don't do it in parallel with the review meeting in terms of their performance. Do it outside of that. Have a stay meeting. Talk to them about what's keeping them in business, what you can do to improve, and don't link it to that performance review piece. Think about social media right now. If you're an organization and you've got a lot of staff involved, and this is a tricky one, right? Try and utilize certainly their professional social media and support them. So encourage them to share your LinkedIn posts, as it were. There's something a little bit invasive about maybe going on and stalking them on their Instagram or their TikTok or Facebook or whatever, right? But keeping it sort of business-like, maybe you promote them on your LinkedIn platform as member of the month or focus of the month, where you talk about them, or maybe you do an interview with them and you get their view on the company. So pulling your staff into your professional social media is a really good tool to get them to share it on as well. If you've got a small set of staff, one of the ways in which you can actually boost your LinkedIn posts is by asking your staff to comment and share and like appropriately posts when you post them, and as soon as you do post them. We know that with the algorithms with social media, the sooner and the more popular the posts are, the more that the platform will boost them. So you can get a nice little boost to your posts, and it's, you know, it's reciprocal, right? So you can go on in your staff's post to give them a boost also. Don't forget to tie in your internal communications with your external communication plan. So look at your marketing plan and make sure that you allocate budget and time and effort to promoting that to the staff as well in line. Okay, so you want to do your internal comms in parallel with your external comms. Now, that is really it for today. The main message here is to, if you haven't already, open the communication channels with your teams. And I'm going to leave you with sort of 3 little nuggets. First of all, share and be open. Talk about the company goals and the progress of those goals. Make sure that your communication to the staff is regular. Don't just do it once a year. Don't just do it once a quarter. You know, do it monthly at the very least. All right, 12 times a year, get out there and talk to the staff. And lastly, make it easy. Make it easy for yourself as the boss to build it into your workload, but make it easy for your staff to communicate back with you through either technology or through an open door policy or through peer-to-peer peer-to-peer, what's the word? A buddying system. Yeah, so I hope you found that useful. Internal communications are something that is really underestimated within a business, regardless of its size. And even if you're a solopreneur, right, and you don't have anyone to talk to internally, then make sure you do a good review of yourself and remind yourself of what your goals are to keep you on track. Now, any more questions out there, please pop them in the chat and I will do my very best to answer them. I will be here on the Tuesday between Christmas and New Year, or as it's known, Twixmas. Yeah, hey, the new vernacular for you. And I will be sharing the highlights of 2022. So I'll be doing a little recap of all of the lives that I've done. We'll be mentioning some of the fantastic special guests that we've had across the months as well. I've only been doing it weekly since July, but I can tell you that I've managed to accrue a large amount of videos, which is nice to have good content to share on all my sort of platforms. Well, I can see in the chat that there's no extra questions, but thank you very much indeed for those who watched live. I hope you found this very useful, and I will wish you all a very, very, very Merry Christmas. You have a fantastic time. Make sure you eat far too much and get far too merry, and I'll see you in between Christmas and New Year for our little recap. Until then, ta-ta for now.